Hey everyone, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm a writer and a spiritual practitioner. And my main passion is helping people up-level their self-concept so that their life starts to reflect who they truly are on the inside. Because after my personal journey going through this, I know how powerful it is to understand how much control you have over your experience by what you're focusing on and what you're thinking about. So that's me.
Welcome to Scratch, Claw, Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Joe Cones.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. So let's start off. So you told me you come from performer background, right?
Yes, actor's
correct?
back. Yes,
So,
definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your early story and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I fell in love with acting in high school. It was an escape for me to deal with, the fact that I wasn't very happy. I didn't feel understood at home. So acting, I would say, really saved my life. Like it really saved me. And I fell in love with it in high school. And then I did a whole bunch of theater. And then when I got to college, I decided that I was going to major in theater arts. So I did 2 years at junior college. I did a whole bunch of shows. I did a conservatory. And then I transferred over to UCSC, University of California at Santa Cruz. And it was so lucky because they had a professional theater company on their campus. So I actually worked for 2 years when I was in my early 20s with professional actors. And then after I graduated, I moved to LA and I realized that I could join the Actors Union because the points that I had earned, which I didn't even know about in college, allowed me to join the union. And so I just worked as an actress. I mean, I did theater, I did TV, I did film, and then I started working as an independent producer. And that was just wild. I mean, that opened up a whole new world. I learned so much. I mean, learning filmmaking, learning I knew about theater because I had done theater for so long, but going into filmmaking, that was just a huge learning curve. But oh my gosh, I worked with amazing people. I learned so much. And then I got burned out. I moved up to Oregon for a few years. I actually worked in theater in Oregon for a few years too, but it was totally different. I worked at a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And then when COVID hit, I moved back down to LA. Oregon, I was just done with it. I was just like, I've had my journey here. I'm done. I moved back down to LA, and that's when I actually started my writing journey. So I had written a little in Oregon. Yeah. I started getting
Sorry,
published.
I want to interrupt you because I don't want to move on there just yet. I kind of want to hear a little bit more about you were an actor. You started producing. Mm-hmm. You touched on this just the tiniest bit and then like boop, boop, boop. So I want to hear when you were an actor, because I'm sure there are nuggets here that kind of informed your later writing journey. And we'll get there. Yeah. We have lots of time. But when you were moving from being an actor to a producer, how did that come about? And what was the mindset change that you went through in that process?
Yes. So I was working at this theater, and one of the actors in a play that I was in said, I have this play, and I would love to produce it, but I need help. And I had done this one, it was like a fundraiser show. It was like little vignettes that people wrote. And I had produced that, but it was at this theater that I was working at. So I had all the support of that. I produced it, but I didn't have to pay for it or anything like that. So when he came to me, I was like, okay. And I just took what I knew from that little show. And then we did this play in Hollywood. We did like 2 installments of it. And the mindset was really, I wanted to have more control and I wanted to understand the business better because I felt sometimes as an actress, like I was very blind to what was going on behind the scenes and why decisions were being made. And so I wanted to understand that too. And I will just say that as producing is one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. I mean, just to think about all the elements, to understand the journey that everybody is taking, And then just everything around it, like all the legal stuff, all the things you have to think about for safety. So that was how I switched over. I mean, and I was still acting, but then I just started being asked by other people, will you produce this? Will you produce that? And it just started leading me down these other roads. And but
Yeah.
I
And
felt
so,
more in control. I wanted to just feel
yeah.
more in control.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so when was the point that you realized that your mindset about the business had changed as a result of this? Because, we kind of talked a little bit in the DMs before, like, when you're an actor and you're just an actor, it's like you don't, like you said, you aren't aware of all the other things going on,
Mm-hmm.
and you can feel very powerless, right? Because your fate is up to somebody else always. You go to the audition and then you wait and you hear or you don't. And so much of your career, you're like, well, I'm doing all the things I know how to do,
Yeah.
but so much of your career feels out of your control.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering how that feeling changed.
It changed because I realized that how should I say this? That creativity spiderwebs into many things, not just the performance. And so I realized that, wow, I'm creative in these other ways that I didn't expect. And how could that make me a better actress, first of all, like just to have that confidence?
Mm-hmm.
And then how could that basically just help me feel better about my life? I mean, about myself too, in anything that I was doing. So I felt like as a performer, as an actor, once I became a producer, I have to say, I just kind of felt badass. Like I kind of just felt like I know what to do. Like when I would go to an audition, right? So then when I was a producer, after I was producing, then when I would go to an audition, I felt a difference between me and the other actors. And that's not a judgment on them. That's just, I felt more secure. Like, oh, I know how to like walk in and talk to this casting director. Like I know what they want to hear and not fake. It's just more, you know how to play the game better. And so it just gave me more confidence. Like, and then when I would say, oh, I'm a producer, I know. And they would be like, oh, like they would just kind of look at you like, oh, okay, I can kind of rely on you to understand what's going on much more so than just get here at your call time. Like you understand that there's a whole world happening that has nothing to do with the actor, So I hope that answered your question, but yeah, it just made me feel more confident and just more self-assured. And also like I could transfer those skills to anything. So
yeah.
We've had multiple actors on this show, going all the way back to our very first guest, Mark Isaacs, who's done everything. But like just that we've had multiple actors comment about how getting into those other areas of filmmaking or theater, usually filmmaking, like, especially now because it's becoming, I don't want to say trendy, but it's definitely trending towards actors now not just being actors anymore. So many of them have branched out into either producing, directing, writing, or owning other businesses, so they're more financially secure. So now they can take the parts they want versus having to take whatever's out there. So like, what as you've come into doing these other things, and now you're more secure as an actor, like how does this carry forward into, I guess, like, the next step of the journey?
The next step. So I would say it actually gave me a lot of confidence, and I hope I'm not going too far in, Billy Joe, so stop me if I am. But when I switched over and I was like, I think I actually want to start writing, like, because I had always written, and that's the other thing. We had always done our own shows. So like I had written my own scripts and then performed them with all these companies. And so I had like this huge writing background that was not necessarily articles or stuff on Google, but I had this big writing background. And I was like, how can I transfer this over without necessarily, doing screenwriting or something like that? I want to do something also that's just like, I can just write, and I love health and I love mindset and I loved all that. All that was all a part of my life, when I was an actress, but I was like, I kind of want to delve more into that. that is when I started writing online, and I got my first published article on a site called Elephant Journal. So, and then I had a viral article on Elephant Journal, which was crazy. Like that, like changed everything. Like I was like, whoa.
What was the topic?
It was real. It was actually about spiritual awakenings and how they're not fun. Like they are. I will send you guys the article. I'll send it to you after this, but it went viral, and I received so much like support and all that, but it really showed me, you know, here's what it showed me, you guys. Everybody, we all have value in helping other people. And like when I wrote that article, the one that went viral, I literally wrote it just like something just flowed out of me. I was like, that's how it feels. It kind of feels bad sometimes and crappy. And like, what am I doing? And where am I going? Where's my life going? And when that hit, it really showed me, wow, I have the ability to help people. And I always knew that as an actor, but you kind of feel like separate. You know what I mean? Like you're on stage, you're on screen. Sometimes you don't have, if you're on stage, you do, but if you're on screen, a lot of times you don't know like how people are responding. Because if you're playing of all these places, you don't know that. So getting all this response from writing, I was like, wow, something that I have to say like can help people. And people wrote to me like, you helped me understand this. I had people write to me saying, can I use this article in my class? Like, can I put it in my book? Like, I was like, yeah. So still to this day, like I'll get people, oh, I found you through that article. And I'm like, wow. So I'll send it to you guys. But that really showed me that all of us have value to help people. And we all have experiences that we can share that can help someone out of a dark day or a dark moment or something that they're confused about, or the messy middle, which I wanted to talk a little bit about today if we have time, just the messy middle of creative process.
I want to ask about that article. What was the strangest thing that came about as a result of that article, or the most touching, or, you know, what was the thing that like really stood out to you, somebody finding you?
The most touching, well, actually a client found me through that article. So that was kind of cool. And then she did an Oracle deck, which was so in line with like, she's like, I loved your article and I've been following you for years. I want to hire you to do some stuff for me. And I was like, great. But I would say the most touching, heartwarming thing was I got an email from this woman and she was like, I run a recovery group. Like it's just a recovery group for any kind of recovery. It's just general recovery. And she was like, I would really love to include your article in our handbook, like so that everyone who comes into the program reads this article. And I was like, are you kidding? I'm like, yes. And then I had someone else ask in I think it was their psychology class. She said, I'd love to use your article in my syllabus. So there was a bunch of different things from that happened. And then somebody else wanted to quote it in their book. Like there's all kinds of little things that happened that was really cool that I was like, wow, like this article that I wrote in maybe like a half an hour, because it just flowed out of me. Like it was just like, you need to say this. And it was really eye-opening. It really showed me like we all have value to help people, no matter what we perceive about our own lives. Like, oh, I'm a failure. This didn't work out. Or like, I'm not as successful as I should be at this age. You know what? All of that doesn't matter, because honestly, at the end of the day, we all want to feel good. We all want to feel good and we all want to feel loved. That's it. That's what we all share. So it's like, we all have the ability to do that. So
you think it was something like you feel like you were just like addressing something that, I guess, for lack of a better term, like, you know, the ugly truths of something, where I feel like a lot of times like people try to gloss over things, you know, I think are like a lot of, you know, spiritual people, they're trying to sell you on the fun part of it. Like, oh, your life's going to be so much better and all this. And they leave out the part, oh, this part is going to, this first initial part that's going to really suck. We're going to talk about the part where it's good, but we're not going to talk about this initial part where you're going to be, you know, cursing the day you were born for like, you know, for however long that takes. That like, was that something that's like, you saw a need, like, okay, look, let's just get, you had that kind of like, let's get real here moment where you like, I need to, and that's where usually most of the good writing comes from.
Yeah, because, you know, in spiritual culture today, because that's the other thing that I do is spiritual practicing and spiritual culture. In spiritual culture today, there is a lot, I think, and from my point of view, there's a lot of pressure to always be on and always be Now, here's the thing. Positive thinking is very important, but we're human beings and we are energy channelers. We channel energy. So sometimes you're going to channel energy that doesn't feel very good and you need to deal with the energy. So when I was writing that article, that's what I was addressing. Cause actually you guys will like it because the beginning line is actually about a movie. Like you'll see, but I really wanted to address it's okay to feel badly. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have your dark night of the soul. Because guess what? The dawn is coming and you have to deal with that energy. And I think in spiritual culture today, we're not allowed to process our feelings, which sometimes don't feel great. And there's a lot of pressure to be like, you must always feel amazing. You must always feel like this. And it's like, that is just not feasible. Yes, you can always pull yourself out of it and have skills to be like, this is a program in my brain and I have the power to think about something else. But sometimes you need a good cry. Sometimes you need to punch a pillow. Sometimes you need to get in your car and scream at someone and just get it out. Sometimes you need to drive on the freeway and like sing your favorite song, like as loud as you can. That we need to do those things. And so that article was really about giving permission. But at the end, it's like, once you do this, you're going to feel great because you dealt with the energy. And spiritual awakenings are like that. They're not necessarily beautiful. They can be messy. So it's okay if it's messy.
Do you know what image is coming into my head as you're talking is that the bathhouse scene in Spirited Away, the bad spirit comes in and everyone wants nothing to do with him. And after he's cleansed, he's like totally different. Like all the gunk comes out. He like vomits up the dirt and the, bicycle and all the things. And like, she's pulling all this stuff out of him. And it's like, I feel you because I've been through those things. And there's a theater company up in New England called Shakespeare & Company.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a month-long intensive program that when I was younger, I really wanted to do that. And they would say, like, when you get out of this program, I did a weekend intensive with them where I felt at the end of the program, I couldn't go home. I was processing so much after 3 days only that I couldn't even go home to my partner at the time because I was angry and sad and had so much going on inside me. And they were like, if you do the month-long intensive, do not make any drastic changes to your life immediately after. Don't get a divorce. Don't move. Don't have a kid. Don't do any of these things that you might all of a sudden have like a strong desire to do. You need to just process and not make decisions immediately that are going to be like life-changing, right?
Yes.
Because you come out and your ego is so like confused. Your ego's like, but this is what I knew, and you're clinging to it. But then you're like, yeah, but I want to be over there.
Yes.
And so you want what's new. You want to go towards the better. But that much change at once is just overwhelming to our egos.
It totally is. And you need to give your ego time to process. This is the other thing. I love that you brought that up because in spiritual culture, the ego is so beat up today. And it's like the ego, all it is a filter. It's just something that filters information. And so we do need to give it time to be like, wait a minute, like you said, I learned this, but I'm relearning this. And so that takes some sort of linear time. And like I said, there's so much pressure today to get over things quickly. Look at how easily people move on in relationships. And it's like, that shouldn't be happening. Like there should be a little bit more of like, I need to process this. I need to know what I felt, what happened. But because we're so scared of our feelings, it's like, nope, no. Let me just move on to the next person so that my ego can be basically focused here and not dealing with my stuff, which is the reason why your life is feeling like it's not working out. And so I love that you brought that up because it's so easy to get caught in, I should just be okay. And it's like, no, listen to your body. If your body is like, I'm tired, I need to take a break. I need to cancel this meeting. I need to go have some lunch. Like you need to listen to that. So yeah, I agree.
Think a lot of this is like the byproduct of like hustle culture and gig economy. Cause nowadays it's like, you just got to keep it grinding, man. Keep it grinding. Don't stop and like think about stuff. Just go.
I hate that. I know. It's so unhealthy for us. It's so unhealthy for our psyches, for our bodies, for our brains. Like We are energy beings. We need time to feel, to release, to decompress, to know, and to hear ourselves, to really hear ourselves. And a lot of times what we hear is not going to be what we learned. And it's going to make us uncomfortable. Like, I'm supposed to go to that party, but I really don't want to go. But like, I don't want to let this person down. And these are the decisions we make. And then we feel awful because our soul is like, you don't want to go to that party. You don't want to do it. So stop doing it. But we're so trained to be people pleasers.
I have a question I want to ask you about that, because so I do a little bit of coaching, and what I've noticed though is that, and this is where I, sometimes people will be like, well, I don't like that. It's hustle culture. And I'm like, there's a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between putting yourself in a situation that isn't going to be comfortable at first because it's not what you know. For instance, having to self-market. A lot of people are like, right? Like they don't, it's uncomfortable at first. And it, especially for people whose self-worth is tied up in their art, especially with actors, because we are just us.
Oh yeah.
And so there's this discomfort, and people confuse that discomfort that they have to push through with the discomfort of, I don't want to, so I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's two different things. And there's like, I've heard people be like, well, I don't want to have to hustle, but they haven't even, I feel like
this. I feel like I can.
I know what you're getting at.
You know what I'm saying?
Thinking along the same lines I was. Like, how do you know when is like, what is like, I don't want to, but I've got to.
That's a great.
Like, how do you figure like where's the moment where how do you know when there's that moment when you need to give yourself a little grace, or is that moment where you need to like knuckle up and just grind through?
And that's what I'm saying is like the hustle part is sometimes I feel like people who are like, well, ooh, I'm feeling burned out, and they haven't even done anything yet,
yes. Okay.
It's all the effort is in their head, and it's all resistance in their head that they haven't done anything yet. So I'm just like, you can't be burned out. You haven't tried,
Exactly. So let's distinguish this, because I think it's really important for people that are listening. So the way that I kind of, in the work that I do, and like you said, with clients and stuff, Billy Joe, like the feedback that you sometimes get from their experiences, to me, it's really all about, and there's a caveat to this because you got to be connected to your body, but it's all about the body. So here's the deal. Those times when you're doing something new and your mind is just like, what are you doing? Oh my God, no. But your body is just so calm, and your body is like, yeah, this feels good. Do it. But even if your ego is like, oh my God, what is this? I don't know. If your body is calm, it's a yes. And so people who are not in tune, first of all, a lot of these people might just not be in tune with their bodies. And so it's an excuse of, I can't do that, I'm burned out. And you're right. It is because their thinking is all over the place. Like, of course you're burned out if you're in monkey mind, like 12 hours a day. Like, of course you're burned out and you haven't taken any action. Then there are people who sit for 12 hours a day and they daydream and everything happens for them, and they take very minimal action because the action they take is aligned. So the first thing is you got to be in your body, and you got to understand that there is going to be a difference sometimes between like what your body feels like and what's going on in your head. I would say if your body is like, no, and you can feel it, there is a difference of like, I don't like this. No, I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. That your head and your body sometimes have two different messaging going on, because your brain can be like, this is new, I don't like it. But your body is like, your soul is like, nah, this is the way. And we've all had those experiences, all of us, where our brain is screaming at us like, no, but your body is like,
well, okay, but then explain this to me, because when I was younger, I used to do a lot of auditions, and especially musical auditions, and I love to sing, right? But I would get in the audition and my shoulders would creep up, and all of a sudden my diaphragm was like way up here and I couldn't breathe, and I would not be able to get enough breath to do the audition properly. And really, what it came down to is I started doing the whole like Amy Cuddy power pose thing, and that helped me get my cortisol down. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like freaking out
Right.
before the auditions. But it was just really, if I'd listened to my body, I would have run out of there screaming. But it really was, I'm not prepared enough. I need to find a way to relax before this.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a year when I finally decided, I'm like, I'm tired of being this person who is flaky about auditions, who is not super reliable about auditions. I was like in my, early mid 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrible. And I was never prepared enough. I was always sort of self-fulfilled prophecy, like shooting myself in the foot, being like, all my
That's what
auditions
the
are always
reaction
bad.
is.
So I finally just did in like 55 auditions in a year and got over it. Like,
Yeah.
I just was like, be prepared, get your shit together. And
That's
then
the change. I just
yeah.
want to say that was the change, because in your body, when you said I wanted to run,
Mm-hmm.
that was because you weren't prepared.
Right.
Your body was like giving you, and there was that deep fear of like, I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. Like that was what your body was telling you. So actually it wasn't some deep fear of like, I shouldn't be doing this or this is wrong, because there's a difference.
Right.
I think your chemistry, your body was responding to, I know I'm not prepared. And so I don't have confidence in myself. And
Right.
so that totally affects your body. Right. But and I know what you mean. This is a very subtle distinction, and people who are not in their body or not aware of their thoughts, it can be very hard to be like, what am I feeling? And this is why, because for the most part, you're in survival mode, and survival mode will lie to you every single time it will lie to you. So thinking that there's a threat when there's not. And so the first part of the work is to get comfortable being in your body and listening to what your body is telling you, especially when it's going against your mind, because there's a lot of things. I mean, I will say, talking about the book for a second, there were many things that I was going through and I'm like, this does not feel good in my body. I don't like it. In my mind, I was like, but you made this decision. You should go this way. You should follow through. And in my body, it was like, this does not feel right.
You mean in regards to writing the book?
No, in regards to getting it like out into the world.
Oh, okay.
So we can get into that in a little bit,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
I just want to talk about the feeling in my body, which I was trying to ignore, you guys. I was trying to ignore it. And like every time I ignored it, it kept being like, this is not right.
So what
And
was
I would
that
be
for
like,
you?
So for me, it was when I started actually getting everything ready for Amazon, it just didn't feel right. It just did not feel right. And I was like, I want the book printed. Because you write in it, like there's a journal and there's a 30-day program at the end. So I want it printed. I don't want it to be an ebook. But, oh, you guys, when I was going through Amazon, it just didn't feel right. And so I was totally bummed out. Talk about being in the messy middle, right? I was like, no, what am I going to do now? And my body was like, wait, let it go for a day and wait. And it's like, but there's the launch date and I have all this stuff to do. And it was like, wait. So then literally, you guys, this was a few hours later, I just get this little nudge, like go online and just type this into Google. And so I did. And then like it pops up. It's so funny, Brandon, that you mentioned Barnes and Noble, that you used to work there. Because it was like Barnes and Noble Press. And I was like, oh my God, Barnes and Noble. Of course. Like,
wait, what did you search?
I searched alternatives to Kindle direct publishing, and like all this stuff came up, and I was like, cool. But when I saw Barnes and Noble, you guys, my whole body relaxed. It was like everything in my body just went shoo, shoo, shoo. And it was like, that's it. Now I'm going to say there are still some little technical things with Barnes and Noble Press that I'm dealing with that are small, minor, but these are not going to like deter me. Everything in my body was just like, that's it. It fits better. For me personally, I just feel like Barnes and Noble, they're classy. Like I like that. I feel like they're focused on books, on reading, and I don't know. It just felt better. And so that's a nice little tie into, you got to listen to your body, because I lost sleep over this. Like I'll tell you, like I would wake up in the middle of the night and be like, Amazon is not right. It's not right. What am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? And if you just let yourself if you just let your intuition give some space for it, it'll tell you what to do. Sometimes it's very small.
I want to circle back, kind of dive in a little more about this thing you're talking about, the messy middle, because I feel like that's where a lot of work gets lost or gets, like that's the storm that crashes a lot of ships, right?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I love that, Brandon.
Yeah. So like I've seen so many people, they'll get into something, I always say this is usually how you can separate the dilettantes between the pros, because the dilettantes think, oh, everybody loves creativity. Everybody wants to be a part of it. But you always have that moment where suddenly this turns into work. The fun, that initial kind of like buzz of getting like, oh, we're doing a creative thing and it's going to be awesome. And you hit that moment where like, man, this just turned into a job.
Yes.
How do you coach people through that, to how to get through that?
I would say this: don't quit, just take a break. So like, here's the deal. I totally hear you, because this is where I'm at right now. I was like on a high last week, like I'd finished the book, like I had my printed thing right here. I was like, yes, all these people were excited about it. And then when this Amazon thing happened, it was like all the wind went out of my sails, you guys. It was like all the wind. And I was like, no. And it did feel like work. And so what I did, like I told you guys, I just let myself have a break. Like I was like, take a break. If you take a break for a day or two, that's fine, because you still have time. It's okay. But that messy middle is where you're going to want to give up. And I'm just going to give you the option to not do that, and to just say, even if I take a week off of this, a month off of this, I will not let this go without giving myself the full chance to see it through. And I have produced a lot of plays, a lot of films, a lot of things in my life. And I will say this, there's a messy middle to every single one of them. And there was always a moment where I felt like this has all fallen apart. There's no way that I can put it back together. It's done. And then it is always the simplest, smallest, most minute little thing that turns it all around. Sometimes it's just somebody saying something and confirming something for you. Like you said, Barnes and Noble, Brandon, I was like, confirmation. So it's like, sometimes it's that. It's like, sometimes it's you overhear something, or you're like me, your intuition is like, Google this or text this person. And then everything comes together. And I know that's going to happen. I know, Billy Joe, I'm going to probably DM you or like email you and say, guess what? Like it all came together.
I feel like you could sum this up with like, pause, don't stop.
Pause, don't stop. And just allow some space. That would be the other thing, because I love that you brought up pausing, because it's like stopping. You are probably, especially if it's something that you really care about, you're probably not going to like yourself very much if you're just like, no. If you just give yourself a break, because listen, when we're in those moments, especially when we're low, it can feel like it's going to last forever. And we've all been there. But then once you feel better, you're kind of like, why was I so dramatic? Like, why was I being so dramatic? So I think it's let yourself have the messy middle. It's going to happen. I'm in it right now, but I'm confident that it's fine, because I know that people are going to have this book in their hands. And I know that. So I don't need to worry about the details right now. I just need to trust, truly.
Funny, as you're talking about this, I'm having so many thoughts go through my brain of like different things, like how sometimes the obstacle that seems like insurmountable in the moment, it's like when that wave catches up with you and sweeps you over that obstacle, and you look back and you're like, that was this big, right?
Yes,
and like, I think about the times when you're just beating your head against a brick wall and you're like, why won't this door open? Why won't this door? And if you relax and allow, and it's something about like, there's a book, Psycho-Cybernetics, which talks a lot about this, but like anyone who's really pushed at a goal in their lives have probably experienced this, of like, you're cramming and cramming and cramming information into your head. And like, I took a class in college called, it was the philosophy of physics. And we had this whole thing about, it was all about quantum physics, but it was, we had to write a paper on a particular problem in quantum physics. And I just couldn't write the paper because I couldn't figure out the thing. And then one day I'm walking to school and it was like a half-hour walk. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get my paper in today because it was due by noon and I don't have the thought to write the paper about. As I'm walking, all of a sudden it was like, oh, there it is. I get it. I get it now. And I ran to the computer lab and just typed the thing up as fast as I could and got it in. Yes. But it's like, you have to, like, you get to the messy middle by cramming as much as possible. But then by relaxing and allowing your brain to do the thing in the back and to have, somebody recently said, like, the whole idea of intuition is that, you know, our gut is another brain and we have all these nerve endings in our gut. And they were saying something, and I don't know what the science is to back this up, but doesn't matter. I like the idea. And it's
there's apparently like a whole new line of study lately. They're calling like the gut the second brain, just to caveat that and back that up.
Yeah. But the idea being that we can only consciously hold so many things in our brain and we can't remember them consciously, but we take in all this information that gets stored away. And it gets stored away, and they were saying it gets stored away in our secondary nervous system, a lot of it. And so it's like harder to access. But if we can just like cram, and then allow, sometimes that will come back. Our brain will go, oop, retrieving that. And I've had that happen so often where, you know, I'm trying to get to the answer of something for school or for work or whatever. And it's when I relax, when I'm like in that hypnagogic dream state before I fall asleep or when I wake up, that something will all of a sudden occur to me that is profound.
Exactly. I love that you said that. Yes.
I want to put this to you, Elizabeth. Is it, do you find that like Billy's saying, there's a point at which you're trying to make yourself and you need to kind of switch gears where you need to now just let yourself?
Yes. Yes. And I will say this, I love that you brought that up, Billy Joe, because it's the same for me. Like, and it's always like we're fighting a little bit right before we let go. Like the ego is like, no, I'm going to get it. And then your ego is just like, okay, I don't know. Right. And there's almost a relief too when you just let it go. Even before you get the answer, there's almost like a relief of like, I can actually just relax about this. I mean, thank God I can. But my spiritual teacher is always saying, you need to get into your body. You know, she's like, you cannot hear your intuition like that. She's like, you need to get into your body. Now I'm going to say something. You can definitely hear intuition if you're in your head, but here's the thing. You're connected to every other ego in divine consciousness, because when you send your energy up and out like this, which is how we do it in traditional prayer, right? You're going to connect with all that other energy. That's every soul that's here. And you're going to hear a lot of noise. Now you're going to hear stuff that may be like, oh, that's familiar to me. I'm going to do that. It's not going to be totally relevant to your experience though. So you got to get down into your body. So like send your energy down, right? So just for people listening, send your energy down and then you give it a couple minutes. You don't try anything. You just, I'm here. I'm in my body. I'm present. That's the state where your soul is finally going to have a little bit of space to be like, why don't you try this? And it's always going to be, I want to be very distinct about this. Stuff from your ego, and the ego is not bad or wrong. It's just conditioned. It wants to help you, but it's coming from conditioned response. So stuff from your ego is going to feel very confusing and like a lot of steps. Like you should do this and then do this. Soul guidance is simple and it's accessible now. So it's like drink a glass of water, text this person, go for a walk, take a little nap. Those are the things you want to be following because it sounds simple, but you're going to run into something, like you said, really just so profound that it's going to knock you over. Like you're going to be knocked over by a feather. Like, how could I have not known that before? It's so obvious. And it's like, of course it is, because you always knew it. You were just, all this was just getting in your training was getting in the way. You know, you were overthinking it. So
yeah, it's like what you just said about the ego. You know, I'm working with some groups right now, and I was talking to them this week about the idea of, you know, yes, make these steps towards your goals small, but also don't make them busy work. You know, the ego is the busy work. like what you're saying. And the soul stuff is what is the one thing I could do that would make all this busy work irrelevant. But those are often the things.
Yes.
Yeah, but those are often the things that we're scared to do because
we're scared to
is like,
do.
oh no, that's scary. I'm afraid to reach out to that person. I'm afraid to try this. It's new, it's different, whatever it is. Or we just don't think it will work. You know,
I think that's the other part of it. We don't think it will work. And so we basically kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, you know, before we even do anything. So my guidance to the people that I work with is, when you're feeling like that, just remember that, first of all, you can take your time. I mean, if the soul is like, text this person, that doesn't mean you have to be like, I'm going to do it right now. You can take 5 minutes and just be like, texting that person. Okay, I think I'm okay now, because you need to address the fear. What's the fear? I'm going to get rejected. If that's the fear, address the fear. Oh, that's my fear. Well, if it happens, it happens, I guess. I mean, I'm going to text them. But I'm going to say that if you're getting guidance like that, you're not going to be disappointed with the results, because your soul knows everything. And so you just have to trust yourself to know that. And I think it's really important to remember that you are running energy always. And so you always have to keep your field clear. No matter how you do that, for me, I always say, like, whatever's not mine, I return to source. Whatever is mine, I call back to me. Learn that from my teacher. And it really helps you to come back to your own self and your own aura, your own intuition. Because it's so easy, you guys, especially when we love other people, to get caught up in their fields and caught up in their belief systems. And we think that's love, and it's not. It's like, we need to just be in our own fields, and we need to know what our intuition is saying, which will benefit everyone we love. The soul is never going to give you guidance that is going to be hurtful to somebody in your circle. That's never going to happen. So
it's become a thing kind of like in the last few years, and it sounds like you've already kind of been kind of touching on this as we've gone along. Is people like getting into the idea of, you know, nowadays you hear the word like the narrative, controlling the narrative or reframing the narrative. We've had like another guest, I think Dave Zaboski, who runs a company called Lytro. He's talking about, like, you know, if whatever you're out there doing doesn't work, tell yourself a different story, or like, it sounds like you're saying, like, or like kind of reframe it to where now now it's like, instead the story is like, well, I am failing at this thing, is like, well, maybe I was just doing it wrong and I just need to do it differently. It was like, you're not a failure. It's like, you were maybe just trying something that wasn't working, and now you just try something else.
Exactly.
So instead of looking at it like as, oh God, I'm failing at life. It's like, you just hadn't worked your way to that new thing yet.
I'm going to tell you guys something that changed my life, and I hope it changed your lives and everyone who's listening. You get to decide the meaning of everything in your life. You get to decide the meaning of everything in your life. So if someone's not getting back to you, oh, must not be the right time. Oh, the universe must be working something else out. Oh, I'm right on time. Cool. Do you have a disappointment? I get to decide the meaning of the disappointment. So the disappointment is, I'm being pushed in another direction. That's the meaning of that disappointment. We get to choose everything. People don't realize their power. And I'm not saying, like I said in the beginning, this is not about being a serial positive thinker and never dealing with your emotions. That's not what this is about at all. It's quite the opposite. It is, this maybe kind of crappy thing happened. I don't like how it feels. I need to address why I don't like how it feels. And then I have the power to say, no, you know what? I decide the meaning of this. And the meaning is, something better is on the way. That's exactly what I decided when I knew Amazon wasn't right. I was like, something better is coming. I have no clue what it is. Absolutely no idea. But I know it's there, because in this whole world, not even the universe, but this earth with all the people on it and all the creations going on, there has to be something else. So it's like, that's the power that we all have. And once I learned that, it really, and when I say change my life, I don't mean to sound trite. It really changed how I experienced my reality and my perception of myself. Like, why am I letting myself get triggered by the silliest things when I have the power not to do that? And you can say, that annoyed me. I'm pissed off about that. Get it out. But then say, you know what? This is probably I'm deciding this is in my favor. I'm deciding it's in my favor. That's it. Because all we're just doing is doing the other way, right? We're just what you're doing is you're just saying, oh, this is probably bad. That's just a choice. Now it's a choice, more because you've practiced that chemistry more. But sorry, Billy Joe, go ahead.
No. This is so great. Like, honestly, so I've been listening to a lot of stuff, and I'm a very spiritual person. There are people in my life who are more science minded and who are very like practical. But the thing is, even if we were not a believer in this sort of thing, scientifically, our brains do better if you're thinking this has a reason. If we create the meaning ourselves, we can do that, and the meaning changes. Like, if you're like, oh, well, because all you're doing is, if you're thinking the other way, is creating stress chemicals in your brain that are ruining your experience. Right? If you're worrying, if you're being angry. And I was thinking about something else you brought up.
I want to, because like you're again, I feel like we're kind of on the same track here. Like, I'm someone, like, throughout the years, I've been generally someone where someone comes at me with some self-help stuff, I instinctively just run the other way. But if you can explain it to me and it's like, oh, this is just, let's take the verbiage out of it and like say, here's how this works practically. We had another guest who talked about manifestation, and that's like that's become like a kind of a very kind of trendy.
I want to talk about that too.
Like, yeah. But like the practical reality of it is, okay, I'm going to open myself up to whatever opportunities are coming my way. And if whether it's a piece of information or a certain, like, a job or a gig or whatever, and I can take this to use whatever that is to get to where I want, that's like the real manifestation. It's not just sitting here like trying to conjure up spells like some people. Because I mean, there are people out there who kind of, maybe we'll say, like, and maybe they don't mean to come off that way, but like maybe they don't have the pitch down quite right.
Right.
And I'm sure, like, for what you do, like, it's you gotta, how do you break through to somebody, or how do you make something that might sound a little woo woo and say, like, no, here's how it really works. Like, so here's
what I would say, because I totally know what you're talking about. And when I first started, I think there's that when people first started manifesting, I think there's almost like a technique addiction, like, oh, there's this technique and that technique, and all a technique is just a way to change your chemistry. Like, that's all it is. So we just need to remember that the manifesting doesn't lie in the technique. The technique is giving you the power to change your chemistry. So let me talk about this a little bit. So, because you're energy beings, you're running energy, right? And everything has a vibration. We all know this in manifesting. Everything has a vibration. So if you're saying I want money, but you're actually feeling lackful, and you can feel in your body what that feels like. I don't have enough. I feel like a loser. I feel like a failure. That's what you're going to experience, because here's the deal. Your life is a placebo effect of what you believe about yourself. It's about you. It has nothing to do with fancy cars or big houses or $1 million. It's actually about, what is my self-concept? And this leads beautifully into the book a little bit, because that is what my book does. Your self-concept is everything. And most of us think we have a positive self-concept when we do not. Look at the choices a lot of people are making. Complete lack of self-love. They're going completely on what they were taught by other people who also didn't know, right? Who weren't authentic. So the way you feel about yourself matters, and the way you're feeling in your body, in your chemistry, what is running through your veins matters. Most people, their self-concept is something like this. Life is this big, scary thing, and I'm this really tiny person, and this is really hard. And I have to struggle for everything that I get, because the culture continuously talks about being good, being healthy, being happy, but then right on the flip side punishes you when you feel good. And look at the culture and look at it, and you will see that. Everyone is punished. Rich people are punished. People who have great opportunities are punished. Why? Because people who don't feel great about themselves are looking at those people and thinking, I can't have that, when you can. It is about how you feel about yourself. If you assume that life is working out for you, you assume that you're beautiful, you assume that you're amazing, you're going to start to experience that. I am living proof of this. I am living proof of this. I want to be very honest with the listeners because I think this is very important. I spent years where I didn't want to wake up. Okay. Like my life was not working. I did not feel good about myself. I hated my life. And once I really realized that I actually had zero self-love, and a lot of this came from stuff in my childhood, which we don't need to go into. But the important thing is here, if you have childhood trauma, you need to deal with that because it is affecting your manifesting. It's affecting your life. You need to get out of survival mode and start creating. So I realized that when I thought about myself, I thought of myself as struggling. I thought of myself as always having to climb up this mountain. Billy Joe, especially when I was an actress. I mean, it was the worst when I was an actress. I'm going to say like 3 weeks ago, it's great timing. I had the most profound spiritual awakening of my life where I realized, oh my gosh, I don't see myself as thriving. I actually always see myself as struggling because in my family, struggle was rewarded. If you are unhappy, if you're struggling, if you didn't quite get there, if your marriage sucks, you are rewarded for that. And so happiness, being successful, that wasn't rewarded. Once I realized that I actually had a pretty crappy self-concept, my entire reality changed. And I'm talking money coming in. I'm talking opportunities. I'm talking about what everyone talks about, like a complete shift of reality. Like there's abundance everywhere. How did I not see it before? I mean, you guys, it's crazy. So here's the deal with manifesting. If it's not working, there's something going on with your self-concept. And that's really what my book addresses. It is a technique, but it helps you to feel like the person that you want to feel like. Because here's the deal. We all want to feel good. Most of us don't. We all want to feel loved. Most of us don't. Why? Because we're looking for it from other people, from the outside world. We all want to feel safe. Most of us don't. Why? Because we're looking at the outside world, and the outside world is really scary. Stop looking at it. Go into yourself and know that you have so much power. And if you feel and see yourself as the person that you want to walk as, you guys, if you want $1 million, you must wake up in the morning and think about what it would feel like to have $1 million. Am I that person that has $1 million? Yeah, that's who I am. You guys, this works, and you must do it every day because you've practiced these other things for decades, some of you, decades. And there's a lot of science behind this. Like my book goes into a lot of the science, but I would say that in the manifesting world, what's getting lost is that people don't get that it's how they assume life is responding to them that's creating what's happening. It's not sitting there, right, and necessarily visualizing a car. You need to know that you're a person that deserves that car, that's worthy of that car, that's worthy of that relationship. Relationships are a big one for people. They're a big one for people. If you want a loving relationship, you better start to love yourself because you're just attracting people who don't love themselves if you don't love themselves. That is a fact. And if you don't believe me, look at your life. And if stuff isn't working, look at your self-concept. Do you really think that you deserve that? Because I never did. Like Billy Joe, when I was an actress, it's amazing the stuff that I actually like booked because like it was so hard for me to have confidence in that, especially working in LA, like where it's just so driven by looks and by all of that stuff. It's like I did not see myself as worthy of that. And so if I could go back 20 years and change that, I would. I can't, but I can do it now. So that's, I think, what's getting lost. You must assume life is working for you. Life is on your side and that you're worthy of that. First, work on your worth. That's the biggest thing is your worth, your deservedness. So
this is passed really fast and I don't want to end it quite yet, but I want to ask one more question.
Yeah.
Unless Brandon has something else, but I want to ask about, how did you, so I cut you off so earlier, sorry.
Okay.
But like when you said you moved to Portland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? So you moved to Portland. At what point did you decide to write the book and how did you end up creating that? How long did it take? And what was the difference, in, because you went from actor to producer to now writer.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like what that where the evolution has taken you inside yourself then.
You know, what's interesting is that what I love about the book is that it's those three subjects. It's acting, you know, and with the producing stuff I did, and then spiritual stuff, and then writing. So it's like this beautiful, you know, book of like all those experiences to help people feel better. I got the idea for the book about a year ago. So it's taken me about a year. I would write a little bit and then leave it, write a little bit and then leave it. And then in January, I just have literally, you guys been working on it every day, like literally since today, like up till today. So it's really come together in the last, 4 months or so. And I would say writing the book really reminded me of being a producer. Well, it was so fun because it reminded me of my acting days. It made me fall in love with acting again because of the technique in the book. But it also reminded me of being a producer and having to think about all the different elements, you know, the promotion, the marketing, like, because I have to explain a lot of stuff in the book. It's like, is this clear for people? Like, if someone's new to this, are they going to understand it? So the process of writing the book was just all the stuff we're talking about. I let it go and it became what it wanted to become. And you guys, it's so beautiful. Like, I'm so proud of it. And I know it's going to just change. It's going to help people with all the stuff that we've been talking about, because there's a science section for the manifestation in the beginning. And then there's the acting techniques, and then the 30-day program to help you walk as this person. I call it your most aligned self, which is the self that's inside of all of us, that when we feel great and when we're making great choices and when we're aligning with what feels good to us, we walk as that person and people notice. Like, they'll be like, there's something different about you. So it is really finding and creating your beautiful story, because I want to say this too. I think it's very important. It's true that human beings need connection. We need relationships like this. We need to share ideas. We need to be like, are you feeling this? Because I'm feeling this. But I want to make a very important point. You are the only one that lives in your head and your body all day long for the rest of your life. Any relationship that you have, that person is in their own brain and body for the rest of their life. So what you have to remember is you are always, ever, and only inside your experience, and you can never be inside somebody else's. So you got to choose inside your mind what kind of experience you want. And we all know this. We can be with all these people we love, and if we're not feeling good about ourselves, it doesn't really matter. Like, we don't really want to connect with them anyway, because we're like, oh, I feel so terrible. So you are the only one that lives inside your mind. So you must decide, how do I want to feel? What do I want to believe about how life is treating me? And these are the things that also help us have better relationships, because when we know who we are and we know where we're coming from, our authenticity, we always love other people better. And when we fill up our own, it's so true, these cheesy sayings, but they're true. You have to fill up your own cup, because that's the only way that you're ever going to be able to like help other people or give. And that's the only way to feel good giving to other people, is knowing I took care of myself and I feel good inside my psyche. I feel good mentally. And we really are of, quote unquote, no use to anyone when we're not taking care of ourselves. And so I really hope that, you know, everyone listening just does take breaks, rest, take naps, you know, eat the chocolate cake. Like, I mean, just enjoy yourself too. Do things that light you up, and they don't need to be big. Like, my favorite thing in the whole day is drinking my coffee in the morning. It's like my solace. It's the thing I look forward to. Even right now, like, I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. So you have to find things that light you up. And I just hope I can plug, if anyone's interested in the book, they can go to my site and you can sign up for updates, because it's going to come out at the end of May, but getting on the list is the best in case I have to change something like we've been talking about. So
since we're at the, we're coming up on the hour, and usually at this point, like, say, tell people where they can find you online, like social websites, whatever.
Yes. So if anyone wants to find me, the best way is to go to my website, which is www.totalwellnesscopywriting.com. TOTALWELLNESS COPYWRITING.com. And in my menu, you'll see all of the pages. You can join my community and sign up for the book, read my blog. If you need to book writing services, you can do so on there, but that's the best way to find me. I'm also on Instagram, Elizabeth G. Writer, and at Total Wellness Copywriting. So
awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
You guys, this was so nice. Thank you so much.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on social media at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. To learn more about the show, visit scratchclawpush.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for the use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2024 by Carcutta Media LLC, all rights reserved.